Hi, good evening, everybody. This is Meredith Lego, and I'm doing a series of videos on Ascension science. I'm going to touch upon a video of a teaching that I did. Again, it's from Ascended Master Hilarion, and it gets into the topic today of clearing energies within the body. And at the end of it, I actually just asked an open question, like, is there anything that's that you want to provide that would be good to pass on? And he got into a lot of content actually that I think is really important to share, because it seemed to be like he's like, we can't stress enough this one topic. So stay to the end. But to set up this particular question that I got into, I work with guides. And part of the guides who I work with are medical guides, if you will. So you do have the ability when you start to kind of tune into energy, and you can do this whether you can feel or clairaudiently speak or clairvoyantly see them, it doesn't matter. But you have the ability to work with guides or beings who will help you heal different aspects of your multi-dimensional bodies, if you will. So they work on the energetic body, obviously, because they're going to be usually in a dimension that we can't see. And during that process, they can help do some healings that will happen energetically, but ultimately, whatever you want to fix in your physical body, first you have to make a change energetically. So they're working on your energetic body, and it can have an effect on the outcomes of your physical body health as well. So there's times when I do ask and call in for certain upgrades or healings, and sure enough, I will be meditating early in the morning after waking up. So I'm awake, but I'm still in a certain brainwave frequency where I'm somewhat able to connect or communicate. But it's also at a time that I feel the actual healing going on in the physical body, and it's very, very intense. So what happens is that I'll be laying there, and all of a sudden I will feel massive amounts of energy surging up through the chakra portals. And it's quite intense. In fact, when it hits, usually it has been intense in the solar plexus, but when it hits my throat chakra, it's intense to the point of being very, very uncomfortable. The only way that I can describe it, it's almost like having a cigarette butt kind of burned out, or touching your skin. It's that type of a burning sensation. But it's essentially clearing that's going on. And when I become more lucid, it tends to die down. But when I'm in that state, I can really feel the energy kind of pulsing through the chakra system. And so I asked Hilarion about that. So if you ever have that sort of experience, just know that oftentimes the first reaction is to fear something like that. But you can also look at it as a positive thing that's going on as well. It kind of depends upon your mindset. So I asked, Hilarion, I felt massive burning in my chakras some mornings while meditating. I obviously know what's going on in the background, but I asked, what is this? Again, I'm sharing this in case you've ever experienced this, or might experience this in the future. Just go into it without necessarily fear, but just an understanding of what could be happening. The answer is the process of clearing blocked energies through the chakra portals can occur in multiple methods. One is yoga. One is inner forgiveness using such means as Ho'oponopono. When the guides help, or when major gamma rays are used, it is a massive release of energy through the portal. And here, when he says portal, he means the chakra portal. It creates a burning sensation in the etheric body, which can be felt in the physical body for one who is attuned to it. And when he says attuned to it, he's saying that, so if you are clairsentient, or I'm sure clairvoyant, you could probably see it too, but I happen to be more clairsentient, so I feel the energy in a very, very strong way. He goes on to say that for the reason this method is not used frequently because it can be unsettling on the consciousness. It is similar to a large dose of radiation. This work is done to the etheric body on another density plane. But if the receiver is bilocated in consciousness, the experience is physically felt. As you know, your blockages have primarily been in the solar plexus and throat chakra. This is why the throat chakra has burned to the point of extreme discomfort during the process. You have worked well through these sessions, for we are not giving you more than you can handle. Then I asked the question, I feel the energy work moving up through my chakras. Will the next points be in the third eye and the crown? And so I kind of asked that because oftentimes, I don't know if I've had a Kundalini, I wouldn't know, hey, this is what Kundalini feels like, or if it doesn't, if I have, okay, then I've had that experience. But there are points when I'm meditating upright that I definitely feel energy kind of going up the spine, if you will. But this is usually happening when I'm laying down, but I almost feel like it's almost like beams of light or beams of energy that are kind of coming out through the different chakra points, and it goes up each chakra point. And then when it gets to the throat chakra, there tends to be a lot of work that's focused on there, and I haven't necessarily felt it go higher in those experiences in the morning quite yet. And he's basically, or excuse me, I'm asking the question around that. So is this being cleared first before there could be movement up? So he says that is correct. However, the benefit is not fully received until the lower chakras are cleared. Then I asked, do the healer guides use a device to do this? Because obviously, I'm not in their density necessarily to see what's going on. So I was just kind of curious. And he said, no. They use intention and hands-on methods similar to the study of Reiki. They are the device or the transistor or channeling energy, source energy in the form of gamma into the intended area. It can occur with them in your time space or at a distance. For as you know, physical connection is not needed for healing to occur. You have experienced in your hands the transference of energy during the healing process. They become very hot and electric, almost like a cigarette butt or lighter is being put out on your palm. The concept is the same, but you are experiencing this extreme heat or transmutation of energy as the receiver of the healing. And so what he's referencing is early days in my awakening, I was just very curious about so many different topics, and took a couple of weekends to study Reiki, and ended up getting certified as a Reiki level 2. And that, if you don't know what Reiki is basically hands-on healing, where you're using intention and using your body almost as a kind of conductor of energy to help the person that you're working on heal. So you're basically funneling just prana energy or source energy into the individual during that time. But when that happens, I don't know how this experience is for everybody, but the hands, because you actually have chakra points or chakra portals within your hands. One is kind of sending energy and one is receiving energy. But when that happens, they become extremely hot, and you're not touching the individual. For me, you certainly can lay your hands on them, but I don't. I kind of go at a higher distance, and you can feel the energy flowing through your body into their body, out of their body, through your hand as well. So it gets to the point where it's burning, almost like the best way I could describe it, although I've never done this, is sticking a cigarette butt out on your hand. It's that intense. So when I'm going through that healing process, it's pretty much the same. So that kind of covered the question of just clearing blockages or energies. And I wanted to share this with you, even though it's personal to me, because you do have the ability of kind of calling on different guides or helpers, excuse me, who are healer guides as well. And, they will help give you upgrades. If it's something that your higher self allows, obviously they will help provide the upgrades if you really want to go down that path. Then at the end of the session, I asked, is there any additional thoughts you can provide that I can share with others? And I usually get a sentence or two. I wasn't expecting kind of longer topics, but he did share something. So he said, we've emphasized that it is easy to get wrapped up in the traumas of the day, whether personal, political, or environmental. Just remember, these are all stresses that you have attracted to yourself as a reflection or how you need to grow. It is your hologram reflecting back which will fulfill your evolution the most. So again, he's saying, and I think at this particular time there was a lot of news going on about possibly mandating vaccines. Just on a personal note, I elected not to take vaccines, but I was in the throes of, trying to debate, should I not? But in this particular time, he's saying, stop getting wrapped up in life. Doesn't matter what spectrum of life that is going on. There's going to be traumas in life, political, personal, your family, whatever. Just remember, there intentionally are stresses that we bring to ourselves. So it has to do with our own sort of mental outlook and emotional outlook on all the stuff goes on in life. So in some respects, we kind of create our own suffering. But essentially, these stresses we attract to ourselves as a reflection of how we need to grow. So kind of thinking about timelines, your vibrational frequency in any of those moments are going to put you on a certain timeline within a certain time space vector, if you will. And so whatever you're thinking and vibrating in that moment will be reflected back to you based upon the time vector or the timeline you put yourself into. Then I asked the question, well, how do you know the right choices to make? It's all so confusing. And that was a very general question I was asking. He said, yes, the answer is always the same. Follow your feelings and that which feels right or makes you happy. This is your barometer for discernment in those times. Your first point of knowing will often come in as a quick download to your conscious awareness. Don't second guess it. Rather, move it into action to secure the timeline towards your highest and best path. And when he means highest and best path, it's whatever is right for your soul to grow through. Often, many of you let your ego get in the way. You second guess your first immediate knowing with rationalizations driven by fear. Even now, you can think of many instances on major life choices in which you have not actioned your inner knowing. And he was speaking to me personally, and he's right here. So I'm an analytic person, so I'm still learning to let go of the mental body, just to give into my feelings and sort of that you're kind of pulling in the source energy that you need, and it provides direction to you from your higher self. And he's saying you just need to go with it. It puts you on a path, but not the most fulfilling path for your higher self's plan. Any lessons not accomplished in this life will carry over to other future lives. Do not fret, for you dictate the time. There is no timer. As you build your antikarana with your higher self, the speed at which you move and action your highest calling is immediate. For your ego no longer interferes. Your ego or your male energy is used to action the impulses. Your feminine energy pulls in the direction or the intention of the knowing of the path. And that's really all he provided, in that particular session to answer that question. But I thought that was pretty interesting. And And I've recently received a channeling, actually, as of probably about 2 weeks ago, that I'll probably do pretty soon. But it shows kind of the mechanics of that, and it ties it back to a lesson he gave me a long time ago that had to do with a white hole and a black hole. Literally like a white hole out there that you would think of in the universe, and a black hole. But essentially, what he's essentially saying is that your magnetic energy, your feminine energy, is sort of pulling in the direction that your higher self is wanting you to go down. So you're pulling in or attracting that which your higher self wants you to experience, and your male energy is meant to then action that, or kind of put you on the right timeline to action that. And he's saying, don't second guess it. Just stop the analytical mind, stop the ego mind thinking it through. If you've pulled it in, it is the right direction that's going to ultimately lead you to the best and highest, life that your higher self wanted you to experience. And ultimately, if you don't do it, if you kind of don't follow that, you ultimately will set yourself up in future lives to go down that path anyway. So, take all the time you want. Just know that you're not going to get out of going through that experience. So in many cases, when I feel those impulses go in and I think of my ego getting in the way, sometimes I don't even think about it. My ego just takes over. So like I said, I'm still on that learning journey, but it might be like a day or two later, I'm realizing, crap, I'm going to still have to go through this. So it's a good lesson. And he did reference, he referenced the idea of building the antikarana with your higher self, and the speed at which you move and action your highest calling is immediate. So what he's doing is he's tapping into vocabulary that I've learned or picked up over time, but essentially the antikarana was used as a way to describe it. To be honest, I have no idea where it originated from, but it was a principle that I learned by participating in some training sessions from the Theosophical Society. I just kind of, again, my passions pushed me into that path, and I learned a little bit, and then I've kind of walked away from that learning, but I did learn about that particular bridge, if you will, that gets created. So the antikarana is a bridge that gets created between you and kind of the higher self, if you will. So you become your higher self when the antikarana is sort of set or built. I think there's probably more research that you can do about it. I'm sure I'm not giving it justice, but that's essentially what that reference is. So what he's saying is that as you've built that antikarana with your higher self, the speed at which you start actioning those impulses that you're sort of magnetically attracting and becomes more immediate, you then are your higher self, in physical form. And that's ultimately what we're trying to achieve in Ascension. It's not necessarily about becoming etheric. It's about bringing the higher levels of consciousness and our higher self into physical form. And it's really the merging of all those dimensions into kind of one plane of existence, if you will. So with that, I hope that, again, added to continue to build your understanding. Like every session I get from Hilarion definitely helps me. And sometimes they're honestly just reminders of stuff that he's said to me in the past. But like everybody in life, I get caught up in my own dramas too. So it's always great reminders. So with that, have a great rest of your evening, and I will share more in future videos. Good night.